Good morning, everyone. Am I right, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I'm here.
Shall we start the meeting?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Shall we start the meeting, ma'am?
Yes, please.
Ma'am, shall I start, ma'am?
Yes, you can start. Please start.
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
But
Thank
you
you.
can hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. We can. A pleasant good morning to one and all connected here. It's my pleasant duty to bid you all a genial welcome for this invited lecture on bioterrorism organized by the PG and Research Department of Botany, sponsored by Star College Scheme, Department of Biotechnology, New Delhi. Let us start this session with a prayer song.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. And forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
First and foremost, I wish to express my cordial welcome to the resource person, Dr. Anthony Rose Immaculate, Head and Associate Professor, Department of Botany, Stella Maris College, Chennai. She is the proud alumna of our department. Ma'am has about 19 years of teaching experience. She has authored a book on the flora of Stella Maris College, a field guide. She has numerous publications to her credits. She had been acted as a resource person and has attended many seminars, workshops, conferences, and gave presentations too. We are so happy to have such a person in our midst today. On behalf of the Botany Department, I welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you. In fact, I'm very happy and it's my pleasure to be back to my alma mater. And indeed, I'm very happy and I thank Sister Arukya Janesius for having invited me for this lecture. Shall I begin? Can I
Ma'am,
begin?
1 minute, ma'am. I
Yes.
need the welcome address to be complete.
Yeah.
I express my sincere welcome to our Secretary, Reverend Sister Dr. Sri Shibana, our Principal, Reverend Dr. Sister Jessie Fernando, Deputy Principal, Reverend Sister Dr. Kulanday Teres for this program. Now I wish to extend my cheerful welcome to Reverend Sister Dr. Oroke Genesius Alphonse, Member Secretary, Star College Program, Head and Associate Professor of Botany, for her untiring support in motivating us to achieve greater heights. Welcome, Sister. My heartfelt welcome goes to the learned professors and all my dear students for this knowledge sharing program. Once again, I welcome you one and all. Dear participants, kindly switch on your cameras so that we can take a group photo with our resource person. Dear participants, kindly switch on your cameras. Participants,
Jennifer, shall we take the photo at the end of the session?
Sister, I have already taken a screenshot.
Okay, ma. Okay.
Thank you, dear participants. Ma'am, the session is yours.
Okay, ma. Thank you. So I'll share my screen, just check whether it has been visible. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So can we go ahead?
Yes, ma'am. You can.
Right? Okay. So, so the topic for discussion today is bioterrorism. Hope we know the difference between terrorism and bioterrorism. So this bioterrorism is totally different from the normal terrorism because it's most of the biological agents are used here. Okay. So now let's start with the definition. How do we here actually in this discussion, we'll be discussing on what is bioterrorism, their history, the key features, their shelf life, and what about our Indian perspective and how we can detect bioterrorism. Okay. To start with, how do you define bioterrorism? It has been defined as a planned or international use of living organisms such as it can be viruses, bacteria, or fungi, or their toxin products to cause death, disability, or disease in man, animals, or plants, or even to poison food or water supplies. So, what is the ultimate aim? So, the ultimate aim of bioterrorism is to harm people, animals, and plants. So, all bioterroristic agents are naturally occurring organisms or toxins that can cause sporadic diseases, or it can be genetically modified to improve mass dissemination under natural circumstances. But on occasion, medical manipulation has been attempted to increase resistance to antibiotics or to organisms' virulence. So, this antimicrobial resistance is one of the most serious health threats facing the humanity. It not only affects human beings, but also animals, plants, and environment as well. We would have already heard about this antimicrobial resistance because we know these microorganisms like bacteria, fungi, so on, even parasites, they will develop an ability to continue to grow even when they are exposed to antimicrobial drugs or whatever medicines. It can be antibiotics, it can be antifungals, antivirals, or anti-malarial, and so on. Even if they are exposed to that, they cannot be killed because they have already developed a resistance. So this makes the infections harder to treat and increase the risk of disease spread, severe illness, and leading to mortality, which is death. So also we all know, hope we all remember even last month, 18th to 24th November, we celebrated, it was an awareness week. Antimicrobial awareness week was, these programs were conducted in all colleges. Hope we are all aware. So now we'll go back to our bioterrorism. This bioterrorism is an attractive weapon. It is also antimicrobial resistance is also included in bioterrorism. So bioterrorism is an attractive weapon because biological agents are relatively easy and they are very inexpensive to obtain and can be easily disseminated and cause widespread fear and panic beyond the actual damage. So now I'll just give you a few key points or key features of biological agents used as bioweapons. So they have high morbidity and mortality. Hope we know the difference between morbidity and mortality. So morbidity is a state of being unhealthy for a particular disease, and mortality is number of deaths that occur in a population. So they are very potential and they can easily spread from person to person. And there is low infective bioweapons. They have very low infective dose and they are highly infectious by aerosol. Aerosol is in aeromicrobiology, would have learned. Aerosol is the infection of suspended particles in air. All the infective particles will be suspended in the air. And there is also lack of rapid diagnostic capability. So it cannot be easily diagnosed. So there is also lack of universally available vaccines. And so they are very potential even in causing anxiety. How do we connect bioterrorism's anxiety is a kind of uneasiness about something which is very uncertain outcome. And availability of these pathogens is also since it is very cheap, it's also feasible for production. So microorganisms can be relatively inexpensive and can be easily mass produced. And we have to talk about the environmental sustainability, because large quantities of biological agents can be effortlessly concealed in small vials and can be easily transported. So because of all these key features, they are potential to be weaponized. And we can also look into the advantages. I have to talk about the advantages of this biological agent. As we have already discussed, they are very inexpensive, relatively easy to produce, and so on. Depending on, if you just compare this with conventional weapons, it can be a warship, which is costing around $2,000. If it is a nuclear weapon, it is around $800. If it is a chemical toxin, then it is around $600. But whereas our biological weapons, say for an example, anthrax, it will cost only $1. That's why now the world is again, the terrorists, they are moving into bioterrorism. So there are also different ways of introducing this bioterrorism. So we can easily spray biological agents into air, which becomes an aerosol. Then it can be easily spread from person to person. Then can contaminate through contamination through food and water, and can also infect animals. That is easy. It can easily carry disease to human beings. So now we have to move into the history of biological terrorism during the past millennium. So looking into the historical perspectives, it is around, say, for about in 4000 BC itself, nomadic Iranian people, they used arrows dipped in blood and manure for their war. In 300 BC, Persian, Greek, and Roman literature, they provide examples of using animal cadavers to contaminate water supply. So these animal cadavers are nothing but they are preserved dead body of animals. In 190 BC, Hannibal, he was a politician. Later, he became a military advisor. So he hurled venomous snakes into enemy ships. He started sending that. In 1155, Barbarossa, he put dead bodies into enemies' water supplies in the Battle of Toronto. In 1945, Spanish mixed wine with blood leprosy. The blood is mixed with leprosy patients to sell to their French people. In 1763, the British distributed blankets from smallpox patients to Native Americans. In 1915 to 1918 was the World War I, where Germans and French agents used glanders and anthrax. So glanders are nothing but they are fatal. It is a fatal disease which is caused by a bacterium in horses. Whereas anthrax, we all know it is a spore-producing gram-positive bacillus. And then it moved on to World War II. In the year probably 1932 to 1945, Japanese, they used plague, anthrax, and even disease as bioweapons. Finally, the most significant biological attack in the US was international contamination of restaurant salad bars with salmonella in the year 1984. So if you look into the phase of evolution, phase one was the World War I, and they used even gaseous chemicals like chlorine, phosphine, and so on. Phase two was World War II. So they used, when that World War began, they were using anthrax, then even plague bombs were used. Phase three was Agent Orange. What is this Agent Orange? It is again a herbicide mixture which is used by US military during Vietnam War. It's a very most dangerous chemical contaminant, which is, you would have heard about dioxin. So that is Agent Orange. So this production of Agent Orange ended in the year 1970s, and now it is of no longer in use. But the dioxin contaminant, however, continues to have harmful impact even today. The last one, phase four, implies on biological revolution in use of genetic engineering, wherein microbes which are natural or genetically engineered, and they can also be biologically derived bioactive substances like plant growth regulators. Then we can also manually design biological toxin substances. For example, I don't know whether you have heard about nerve gases. It is manually designed biological toxin. So this will affect the transmission of nerve impulses through nervous system. Now we'll just look into the differences between biological and chemical toxins. So biological toxins are natural, they are odorless, and they can be easily dispersed through aerosol, whereas chemical toxins are synthetically obtained. They are volatile in nature and they can be dispersed through mist or aerosol sprays. Whereas biological toxins can enter through inhalation or digestion. Pre-exposure enhances immunity through the use of toxoids, vaccine, antibacterial protective clothing, biosensors, and smoke detectors. But post-exposure treatment relies on antibiotic or in combination with other vaccines. Whereas if you look into the chemical toxin, pre-exposure treatment relies on use of gas masks, then anti-chemical protective clothing, and use of chemosensors for toxic substances. And post-exposure treatment relies on use of antidotes and neutralizing agents. Now, the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, had classified the potential biological threats into 3 different categories: Category A, Category B, and Category C. So Category A is going to be of highest risk and highest priority. B is second highest priority. And the third one includes all genetically engineered biotoxins. So now we'll move on to Category 1, that is Category A. These are the agents are the highest priority pathogens. So they can be easily disseminated or transmitted from person to person. It results in high mortality rates. They have the higher potential for major public health impact. They might also cause public panic and social disruption. Then it requires special action for public preparedness. And we'll look into the examples of Category A. So the bioagent is going to be the Bacillus anthracis, which produces a disease anthrax, and it is waterborne. Then Clostridium botulinum will cause botulism, and it is, all of us know, it is a foodborne infection, botulism. Yersinia, which causes plague, and it goes through infected flea. We know flea is nothing but it is ticks, no? That will start spreading it. Then variola major, it's a virus which causes smallpox, and it is airborne. Category B agents, this will include that are moderately easy to disseminate, and it results in moderate morbidity rates and require specially enhanced diagnostic capacity. And if you look into the examples of Category B, Clostridium perfringens will cause gangrene. Gangrene is it's a death of body tissue due to a lack of blood flow, or serious, it's a bacterial infection. So that is gangrene. So this is again transmitted through food. Then Salmonella and Shigella, more or less similar. It is dysentery. Salmonella will cause salmonellosis, and Shigella will cause dysentery, and both are, but Salmonella is through food, transmitted through food, but Shigella through water. And cholera also, we know it is Vibrio cholerae. This is also waterborne. It is transmitted through water. And as botanists, we should know about this resin. It's a plant-derived Category B agent, and it is very naturally occurring. You know, all of us know Ricinus communis, which is castor beans. So if castor beans are chewed and swallowed, the resin released can cause injury. So this was also used as a biotoxin. So it can be in the form of a powder, a mist, or a pellet, or it can be dissolved in water or weak acid.
Okay.
Yes. Can I go ahead?
Sure, ma'am.
Okay. So according to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, which you call it as CDC, resin kills a person by inhibiting protein synthesis in cells. Symptoms of resin poisoning may take several hours to show up and vary depending on whether the toxin was inhaled, ingested, or injected, and there is no known antidote for this resin poisoning. Now let's move into Category C. So category C includes emerging pathogens that could be engineered for mass spread in future. They're easily available and easy to produce and disseminate, and they have high mortality rates and major health impact. And few examples are Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which is airborne and causes tuberculosis, and encephalitis, which is caused by Nipah virus, and how it has been spread, transmitted through direct contact with infected individuals. So these are the cultivable bioterrorism agents. As we all know, again, bacteria and fungi could be cultivated in nutrient agar as well as in PDA medium, respectively. But there are some specialized and differential media in which bioterrorism agents could be cultivated. So in blood agar is a media where Bacillus, Yersinia, Brucella, Burkholderia, all these can be cultivated simultaneously. In McConaughey agar, the other species of Burkholderia can also be cultivated. So we also need to know about the shelf life of a biological agent, how long it can survive. What is the shelf life? So biological weapons can be stored for decades if it is properly maintained. Biowarfare agents are living organisms and can decay very quickly if exposed to adverse environmental conditions. Therefore, stabilization methods like freezing or dehydration to be used to slow down their metabolism. Some of the microorganisms like Bacillus, Anthracis can naturally slow their metabolism by forming dormant spores. So this natural process can be emulated in this laboratory through a method which is known as encapsulation. That is by applying a coat of protective material to certain pathogens or toxins. So there are also some epidemiological clues to an event of bioterrorism attack. So they are as follows. I have just given you in points. So we'll be able to notice large number of ill person with similar disease or syndromes presenting around the same time. There will be failure of common diseases to respond to unusual therapy. Then we'll be also able to see high mortality or morbidity rates will be higher than they expected when a common disease or with a common disease or a symptom. And you can also see unusual or genetically engineered strain of the agent, which could be easily recognized. And disease with an unusual geographic or seasonal distribution can also be noticed. Similar genetic type among agents. So the genetic type among agents can be easily isolated temporarily or spatially distinct sources will also be observed. So these are the clues to know that it's going to be an event of bioterrorism. If you look into the Indian perspective, India is more at risk due to we know we are densely populated, our hygiene is very poor, and we have deprived sanitation, and we have a very pleasant climatic condition for the microbes to grow very fast. It's a congenial climatic condition and a lack of adequate medical facilities. So how do you detect them? Early detection systems, how do you detect it? So this BIDS is biological integrated detection system. So here, genetic and antibody-based detection can be done on suspected aerosol particles, and this could be detected by this kind of a system, which you call it as BIDS. The second one is LRBSDS, is long-range biological standoff detection system. This will detect aerosol clouds from a distance up to 30 kilometers and can provide early warnings. The next one is going to be SRBSDS, is short-range biological standoff detection system. This will use UV and laser-induced fluorescence for detection. And the last one is laboratories. So there are also laboratories for detecting bioweapons where routine pathogens are cultured and identified. Tests like confirmatory test, antibiotic susceptibility test, rapid presumptive test, then molecular level testing and highly specialized testing are also carried out in laboratories. So what are the challenges and determinants of bioterrorism, or we say bioterrorist? So the challenges posed by bioweapons is the availability of multiple agents and their delivery means. So they depend on all this, the availability of multiple agents and delivery means. Then there are variable incubation period, there are high mortality rates, and finally, there are potential for geographic dispersion of the agent during incubation period. So these are the challenges posed by the bioweapons. What are their determinants? Determinant of the bioterrorist is used. What is the determinants? It can be, they will be easily conquer. That is the conquest of power, progress, and money. And they are also involved in preserving and promoting probably religion, race, and their ideologies. Now, what are the challenges to fight bioterrorism? These challenges is for us, for the people. So we have to do a proper collection of specimen at the site and their identification to be carried out. And we should be able to recognize the occurrence of attack and quick management of all outbreak to be executed immediately. So these are the challenges. So now let's just move on to the research efforts in biodefense. So research efforts are put in to understand the basic biology of potential bioterrorism agents. Also, to understand the interaction between the human immune system and these microorganisms. Research is also carried out in developing and improving drugs and vaccines that are effective against bioterrorism agents. Researchers are also involved in developing tools to quickly and accurately diagnose diseases caused by these agents. And we have to also establish resources and biosafety laboratories to facilitate biodefense research. Now let's just move on to the measures. Look into the measures to mitigate the consequences of a biological attack. So it can include, it includes protection, detection, and decontamination. So protection is, we are advised to wear protective suits, shelters, clothing, and gas masks in the event of an attack. They are suggested particularly for, all these suggestion is mainly for the military personnel or first responders who are in direct contact with pathogen or infected individuals. The next part is, the next part of mitigation is detection, the ability to detect and diagnose biological attack or natural outbreak in a very critical, which is going to be very critical to limiting the scale of its potential consequences, as it enables treatment of the infected and allows time for people who are not infected. That's why the international community has launched several initiatives to strengthen global surveillance. And the final measure is to mitigate the consequences of biological attack is decontamination. So most of the biological agents, they do not live very long once disseminated, except a few microorganisms like, Bacillus anthracis, which is anthrax, that will start producing spores and it will live for years together, which are very persistent, and they can contaminate area for a longer period of time. So this disinfection and decontamination methods are typically, we can rely only on chemicals, heat, or UV light. Now, let's move on to this Biological Weapons Convention Act. So it is a disarmament treaty that effectively bans biological and toxin weapons by prohibiting their development, their production, acquisition, and transfer. So this BWC, that is Biological Weapon Convention, is a key element in the international community's effort to address weapons of mass destruction, proliferation, and it has established a strong norm against biological weapons. This convention has reached almost universal membership with around 185 states parties and 4 signatory states. And again, as botanists, I thought I can discuss a few points on agro-terrorism. So all that what we have discussed now is only terrorism. This is agro-terrorism, which is very important in agricultural sectors. So this agro-terrorism is also known as agricultural terrorism. So it is a malicious attempt. So it's an intention to harm. That is, it's a malicious attempt to disrupt or destroy the agricultural industry or food supply system of a population through the malicious use of plant or animal pathogens to cause devastating disease in agricultural sectors. So it is an act of terrorism which is intended to damage the country's agricultural production or food supply. The opportunities for agro-terrorism are very abundant, but the mechanism for detection and responses are very limited. So from slide 1 to the last slide, I thought I'll just give you a conclusion of whatever we have discussed from slide 1. So it's just a recap. It's a recap only. So bioterrorism, it involves the use of biological weapons, including which are involving infectious diseases and toxins produced by bacteria and viruses that results in economic loss, mass casualties, illness, and loss of humans and animal life. Bioweapons outbreak results in severe erosion of genetic diversity in our population. The most effective prevention measure rests on creating and preserving strong cultural norms that prohibit the development and use of such weapons at the individual and political levels. Finally, to conclude, the threat of the biological attack remains a serious concern for local and international security. Although the state of preparedness is improving, the consequences of this biological attack remains a great challenge. So thank you. So this is just a recap of bioterrorism, and these are the references. And thank you for your patient listening. If you have anything else to be asked, maybe we can go in for a discussion.
Girls, if you have any doubts, you can raise your questions.
Duff?
Sister?
Tell the students to write their doubts in the chat box also.
Okay,
Type
sister.
type.
Girls, otherwise you can type your doubts in the chat box.
Tap to speaker.
Immaculate, ma'am?
Yes.
There is one question in chat box.
Yeah, I'll just look into.
How anthrax is transmitted?
It is mainly through cattle. Anthrax to start with. Through cattle, through air. I don't know whether you can hear me.
Yes, ma'am. We can hear
Bacteria,
you.
anthrax. Usually, it started with cattle. Cattle only had, and through that only people started. Cadavers are in those days itself. Anthrax was used as a bioweapon, and people had used the cadavers of animals. Cadavers are nothing but they are preserved dead bodies of animals. Through that only it started spreading.
Ma'am, I have one doubt.
Yes, ma'am.
Is really a coronavirus is the weapon of bioterrorism?
Yes. Because I didn't touch that because, this Biological Weapon Convention Act and so on is there because none of the countries announced that as a terroristic weapon. That's why I didn't want to touch. But it is a man-made.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, one more doubt.
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, is there a way to prevent infection?
Is there ways of?
Way to prevent the infection.
Yes, there are so many ways to prevent the infection, which means we have taken vaccines. So only the immunity power, but other than that, It is not in our hands because we don't know from where this bioterrorist will come and how. There are also a lot of other conventional act and the laboratories, those are doing research on this is still going on. But to our point of view, to avoid infection is to take a vaccine, or we have to have mask, and we just, when we walk through, even now we heard in Kerala virus has been spreading and we started wearing mask. We cannot totally avoid this infection because we are human beings and we are prone to everything.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Mom, what are the symptoms for anthrax?
Symptoms for
Anthrax.
anthrax? Are you asking about anthrax? I'm not able to hear you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So usually anthrax is caused only in animals, cattle and sheep. They will suddenly they'll die, and just before that death, if you see the animals, they may also show high fever, and you can see blood coming out from the mouth, nose, anus, and so on. So in these, it's only for the animals. So it can be easily diagnosed. But in many cases, you may not see this sign, but you can see if there are any high fever or blood coming out from the anal part or from the nose. That is the main symptom of anthrax. It is the signs of anthrax in livestock.
Thank you, ma'am.
And generally they die. If they get anthrax, they are not going to be alive. Generally they die. Clear?
Girls, any other doubts?
Mom, can the anthrax spread to a person?
No, I'm not getting you. Yeah? Can you, because I'm not able to hear you.
Daf, did you notice that the student who asked the question now? Did you notice it? And Daf?
Yes, sister, it was
Sister
Mahalakshmi.
Mahalakshmi, sister.
Tell her to ask again.
Mahalakshmi,
Ma'am, can
you please
the
repeat the question, ma'am?
Sure, ma'am. Ma'am, can I audible to you?
Yeah.
Can anthrax be spread to person?
Yes, it will. Person to person it is anthrax is catering only to the animals. It moves from person to person. It is spreadable.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah. Hmm.
Sister?
Daf?
Shall I propose the vote of thanks?
Yes, ma. Yes.
Warm greetings to one and all present here. It gives me immense pleasure to propose the vote of thanks. First and foremost, we extend our deepest gratitude to God for the grace and blessings that have surrounded us throughout this event. On behalf of the Department of Botany, I would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Anthony Rose Immaculate, Head and Associate Professor of Botany, Stella Maris College, Chennai, and our proud alumna from the batch 1995 to 1997. Ma'am, your expertise in the field, coupled with your engaging presentation style, greatly enriched our understanding of critical subject matter. Ability to convey complex information in a clear and accessible manner was truly commendable. The depth of your knowledge and the real-world examples you shared provided valuable insights that will undoubtedly benefit our students and faculty members in their academic pursuits and professional endeavors. We appreciate the time and effort you dedicated to preparing and delivering the lecture, especially considering the challenges posed by the virtual format. We are grateful for the positive impact it had on our students. Once again, thank you for your invaluable contribution to our students, ma'am. I express my deepest gratitude to our esteemed Secretary, Reverend Sister Dr. Shibana, Principal, Reverend Sister Dr. Jessie Fernando, and Deputy Principal, Reverend Sister Dr. Kulandhi Teres, for their constant encouragement and support. My heartfelt thanks to our Head of the Department, Reverend Sister Dr. Aruki Genesius Alphonse, for her visionary leadership and unwavering support. A big thank you to all the dedicated faculty members who have worked tirelessly behind the scenes to make this event a resounding success. And we are truly grateful to Ms. Patricia Romila, Assistant Professor of English, for her technical support. I extend my heartfelt thanks to our students and all the participants from the other colleges for their enthusiasm and active participation that have added a special touch to this event. Once again, I thank one and all. Thank you. Dear participants, stay back for a few minutes. We want to take few more photos. Jennifer, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Ma'am, thank you so much.
Thank you, sister, for inviting me. In fact, I should. It's my pleasure.
I will contact you later.
Yes, sister. Yes, yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dear participants, kindly switch on your cameras.
Immaculate, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank
so
you.
much
Thank
for
you.
spending
Thank you.
your valuable
Yes,
time with
sister.
us. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, can I leave?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You can leave, ma'am.